I've got 3 freaking army lists that if you're an Ork player, you're going to love. You got to try them out. So let's get tactical. Hey guys, so Tactical Brigade's done some seriously great things. It's a very, very lovely new addition to the Orks lineup, and I've got it tied for best detachment out of the Orks right now. If you want more details on that, I've done an entire Ork detachment tier list, which you could probably find somewhere around here. But I've got 2 different lists that I'm going to share with you right now for Tactical Brigade, and I've got a bonus Warhorde list that I'm going to show for you, just because of the way the meta's changed. Some of the lineups, the way that we're building is going to be changing as well. I'm going to break down the ideas behind all these lists and how they move on the tabletop and exactly how you're going to be running them. And when you try them out, I'm pretty much convinced you're going to have a blast with them. I'd like to also hear your ideas for how you're running Tactical Brigade down below, but this is going to give you a great place to build off of. I've had some pretty great success with all of these. One of them is a little more experimental, and I'll talk about that when I get to it. So here we go. List number 1. This is 2K on the nose. So Tactical Brigade. We've got 1 Beast Boss, and he will be leading 10 Beast Snagga Boys. Then I've got a Big Mech and Mega Armor with the Mech Captain upgrade, and he is going to be leading the 10 Flash Gits. Now, this is a big conversation point. Do you take the Big Mech and Mega Armor with the Gits, or do you take a Big Mech with Shock Attack Gun with the Flash Gits? Well, if you take the Big Mech with Shock Attack Gun, essentially what's going to happen is it's going to hit harder. There's just no doubt about it that Shock Attack Gun hits harder. Especially when you start being able to give him lethal hits once per game. It's just brutal. Rerolling hit rolls with him is very, very strong. But what the Big Mech and Mega Armor does is he gives you a 4-pin vulnerable save to shooting. So suddenly your Flash Gits are going to be stealth and a 4-pin vulnerable save. It actually makes them quite durable. Not to mention he gets to resurrect Flash Git every single turn, which can be bonus movement, it can be objective stealing, it can be all sorts of things. So that's the question. Now, the Big Mech and Mega Armor is 25 points more. So if you decide to turn him into a Shock Attack Gun, then you might have some wiggle room in your list where you can change some things up. All right, so after him, I've got 2 Big Mechs with Shock Attack Gun. Those guys are going to be leading 2 units of Ludas. Ludas, when they're led by a Shock Attack Gun, are freaking awesome because, once again, that Shock Attack Gun is now going to have full rerolls to hit if you're shooting at something that is on an objective, or at least just rerolling hit rolls of 1. And he's always going to be ordering the Ludas to be +1 hit and likely stealth. When you have stealth on your army, it is just enough to tip the scales where sometimes you just don't get annihilated in your opponent's shooting phase, even though you think that you should. So the Big Mech with Shock Attack Gun is freaking awesome, and honestly, guys, do not sleep on how freaking powerful the Battle Shock mechanism can be. When people fail Battle Shock, that could just be the end of the game right there. Suddenly, that fights first unit can't heroic intervene. Suddenly, they can't AOC the unit that they really want to AOC. You following what I'm saying? There's just so many things that failing Battle Shock can cause. Then we've got 2 War Bosses. One of them is going to have the God Boomer, simply because this list was at 1990, so I might as well give him God Boomer. So I have the might as well. Then let's go into the rest of the list. We got 3 times units of Storm Boys. We do have the 10 Beast Snaggers, like I said, that's going to be running with the Beast Boss. We've got the Flash Gits that are running with the Big Mech and Mega Armor, the Mech Captain. Then we have 2 units of Gretchen. We get 10 Commandos, 2x10 Ludas. Those are also going to be with the 2 Shock Attack Gun mechs. 2x5 Knobs, each with a War Boss of their own. 6 Tank Buses, and then 5 Trucks. Effectively, what this list does here is you have a shocking amount with Shock Attack Gun. Get it? We have a shocking amount of shooting from an Ork army. The Shock Attack Guns tend to hit up really, really hard. They swing up. They've got massive AP. They actually can have very, very good damage. So it really screws your opponent in their deployment, especially with that sweet 48 range that you have from the Shock Attack Gun and the Flash Gits, or the Ludas. 48 inches with 4 rerolls to hit at hitting on 5s is actually much less of a joke than people kind of think it is. Then we look at the Flash Gits. The Flash Gits are every bit as useful as the Badrock Flash Gits used to be, only now they're a lot harder to kill, which is pretty damn cool. Backing up by the fact that you're going to be regenerating Flash Gits, it actually makes them very, very hard to tag. The Commandos, which some of you might be surprised, you're like, oh my gosh, Johnny likes Commandos. No, I actually think Commandos are very useful. I'm not going to say that they are the most insane, amazing unit in the game. I still think they're a little bit overpriced. I still desperately wish that we could take them in units of 5s. But in Tactical Brigade, the potential that they give you for turn 1 move blocking and damage is actually pretty damn surprising. So bear with me if you will. But let's say we go first. You can get a War Boss out with maybe a God Boomer so that he can be within range and safe from shooting, but he can be within range of the Commandos to give them the maybe +1 strength, and reroll charges order. So now the commandos walk out. They can't be overwatched. So they were deployed 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone. They move 6 inches. They get to throw their squig bomb. Then you can spend a CP on grenades. So they're going to be doing anywhere between 4 to 6 mortal wounds off of all that. Actually, it's possible they could spike higher, but roughly you're gonna be in that 4 to 6 mortal wound range. Then you get to charge, reroll the charge roll just in case that you happen to fail the charge. And then if you get lucky with your Gretchen, now you have commandos that are running in at strength 5, which is a significant breakpoint over strength 4. But they could also be sustained hits 1 if your Gretchen fish you CP. So there is actually a very significant amount of board control that you can get with this one unit of commandos that you really can't get anywhere else in Orks. And that going from strength 4 to strength 5 is a huge freaking breakpoint, which is why I kind of like them in this detachment. The reroll charges thing is just pretty nice. I probably wouldn't be running commandos anywhere else than Tactical Brigade, but being able to go from that strength 4 to that strength 5 whenever you want, man, it speaks to me. It absolutely speaks to me, and I wonder if it speaks to you. Beyond that, we've got just other general good stuff in this list. So what other good stuff are we talking about, guys? We are talking about knobs. Knobs hit crazy hard. You're not generally going to be dedicating both of the knob squads in the same turn. You're probably going to be using them one turn at a time to be able to give them the sustained hits buff when you need them to have the sustained hits buff. You have the tank busters. Tank busters will be in a truck with 1 unit of the knobs. Each Luda squad will have their own truck. 1 Beast Snagga Boyz squad will have their own truck. So you've basically got all the tools. You've got anti-tank and melee in the form of the Beast Snagga Boyz that could just go smash something. You've got a unit of naked tank busters that you can either strat reserve or have starting in a truck. I'll probably start them in a truck. You can always order the tank busters to hit on 4s. Even though they don't have a leader in this particular detachment. And the reason you can do that is they're going to be inside the truck with one of the knobs, meaning when the knobs get out, they don't really need any of the orders because they're really just going to go in and smash and charge. So you can always just use the war boss to order those tank busters to get the +1 to hit. So suddenly they can become anti-elite infantry as well because you can activate their pulse rockets. Always take the pulse rockets to get the strength 10 AP3, damage 3. Suddenly, they're hitting on 4s into elite infantry and slapping them as well, mainly wounding them on 2s since they go up to that sweet strength of 10. So they're very flexible into either vehicles or into elite infantry. That doesn't mean that you are planning on 120 points worth of tank busters to wipe anything big, but it causes enough damage that it really forces your opponent to make different decisions. And that's basically the entire story of freaking Tactical Brigade anyway. Just in general. We've got 3 units of Storm Boys. Now, some people might argue with me on the 3 units of Storm Boys. I have found 3 units of Storm Boys is freaking awesome. I love starting 1 on the board turn 1. So turn 1, I could, once again, put them up to strength 5, have them reroll charges so they can alpha strike something if I need it alpha striked. I generally start 2 on the board here and maybe 1 in deep strike. If I need to uppy downy 1, say if I go second, then that can give me options. Like there's just so many decisions that you can make with this new detachment, and I really enjoy it. So the way I do the transports, once again, we've got the Snaggas inside 1 truck, we've got the Gits inside 1 truck, we've got 1 truck for the Ludas, we've got 2 truck for the Ludas, and then we've got 1 truck for tank busters and knobs. And you're gonna cycle the knobs in and out, right? So because turn 1 you're probably gonna disembark for the God Boomer to order the commandos, and then you play hopscotch with them. We call that the taxi strategy. If you don't know what the taxi strategy is, it's how you use 1 truck to share 2 units. All right, then we'll go into list number 2. So list number 2 is a little bit different. It's still Tactical Brigade. This is theoretical. I do not have reps with this one. I'm trying to get reps with it right now. Hopefully I get to play a few this weekend. It's a little bit more challenging getting as many games as I want with the newborn, but that's okay. She's a absolute delight. I'm sure no one out there has any idea what it's like to have children. Certainly not. But yeah, so hopefully I get to run this a few times and I can give you some more feedback on it. But the theory of it is pretty darn sound. So basically we are still playing a hard shooting tactical orc list, Tactical Brigade. But the addition of Mozrog Scragbad, because remember, this guy is mounted. He is not a monster anymore, meaning he can order himself to, say, have reroll charges. He can order himself to be +1 strength. But most importantly, he can order himself to be stealthed. So suddenly Mozrog can be -1 to be hit with his 4 invulnerable save, with his 5 of Field of Pain. Now, he's still not going to be as tough as he was in the Index, but this really skews the math on him when you stack a -1 to hit and a 4-up invuln and the 5-up Fiona Pain on him. A lot of times what you're going to be doing is you're going to be putting yourself in positions where your opponent's going to have to choose, do they go for Mozrog or do they try to pop your trucks? That causes issues. Just causes massive issues. Now, in this list, I've got 3 Big Mech with shock attack guns. I'm leading 1 with a unit of Ludas and 2 with tank buses. Now, you do not have to do the same, and I'm not entirely sold on that. I think I kind of like tank buses being empty, so you can turn those tank buses into Ludas and save yourself 40 points. Like there is wiggle room in this particular list, but for right now, I'm gonna try to run it like it is. I'm gonna try to run the 5 knobs with 1 war boss, 2x6 tank buses with shock attack guns, 1 10-man Ludas with shock attack guns, the flash gets beast snaggers, and a normal unit of Boyz. The normal unit of Boyz is pretty important here because it gives you some sweet sticky objectives. So one way that you could do this in a little bit of an alternative world is you could more or less run the exact same list, but you're just basically swapping out a single unit of, say, you can pretty much just say, I'm going to swap out Commandos and Gretchen for freaking Mozrog, or you could say, I'm just going to swap out 1 unit of Nob and War Boss for Mozrog and have some points to spare. Or you could run it in a little bit of a different style like I have here. So I gave you 2 different style lists here so that you can have some wiggle room to play with. Now, what am I doing with my freaking Warhorde list? I have changed it a little bit, especially with the new units. Warhorde is freaking amazing. The melee pressure that they put out is crazy. I don't know if it's better than Tactical Brigade, though, because with Tactical Brigade, man, having that one freaking rerolling hit roll Gretchen, or sorry, flash hit squad is so powerful for just controlling the battlefield. And honestly, it is a blast to roll in Overwatch where you get like 30-something hits. it's just hard to be mad at that, right? So I freaking love it. So let's talk about this Warhorde though. In here, I'm gonna be running 2 units of Beast Snagas, each led with their own Beast boss. One of those Beast bosses is gonna have Follow Me Lads to guarantee I get him where he needs to be. Of course, you got Big Gaz. And then we also have 2 war bosses. The 2 war bosses will be leading 2 units of Knobs. We've got 2x6 Breakaboys. Breakaboys are freaking awesome. And the math on them says that they should, and when I say should, that's what I mean. It doesn't mean will. They should be able to kill a Vindicator outside of the wall turn. So when you include the Squig Bomb that they're going to throw, should cause roughly 2 mortals. And the average amount of damage that they do between their sustained hits, tank hammer, smashing hammers, and then the 1 tank hammer that's got the devastating wound anti-monster vehicle 4-up. You should cause 11 wounds to a Vindicator. I think it's like 11.23 or whatever, but that doesn't matter. So you should be able to kill it. Now, if you are uncertain of whether or not you're gonna kill this Vindicator, and you throw the Squig Bomb, then you can actually throw grenades for them to bias it in your favor. Really, really nice. Or when you charge them, actually when you charge them, you can use Unbridled Carnage to have them critting on 5s instead of critting on 6s, which will once again tip the scales, making sure that the Vindicator should die. So the reason why I run Breakas in Warhorde is because in Warhorde, they can be unled. In every other detachment, they really need a leader for them to guarantee those kills. And that leader is pretty much always going to be a War Boss. War Boss is 75 points. Breakaboys are 140 points. You do the math on that. That is what? 215-point unit. So now you're spending a 215-point unit to kill a 175-point unit, versus in Warhorde, I can spend a 140-point unit to go kill a 175-point unit. If the vehicle is easier to kill than a Vindicator, it just gets easier, right? So that's why I really, really like Breakas unled in Warhorde. And they also have that sweet flat damage 3 if you need to throw them into some elite infantry as well, which you probably don't want to, but you totally can. I love Breakers for utilizing them outside of the WAAAGH. Everything I try to do in my list is I try to figure out how do I make my list operate when I'm not in the WAAAGH. Because my opponent is going to move block me. My opponent is going to deny me a great WAAAGH by having themselves positioned if they're smart opponents. So I need to be able to play the game when I'm not in the WAAAGH. And Breakers do a fan-freaking-tastic job of that. Just another little strategy if you're trying to kill a Vindicator equivalent style vehicle. If you have both of your units of Breakaboys inside one truck, you could disembark one, move, throw that Squig Bomb, and then you can disembark the next, throw the Squig Bomb without moving out from behind terrain, meaning you can throw 2 Squig Bombs at the exact same target to bias the math even further into the vehicle or monster, or honestly even elite infantry that you're trying to charge. So you have things like that. You don't have to expose both units to throw both Squig Bombs. That is definitely a real option that you guys have. So So then we've got 2x11 Gretchen. We've got 3 Mega Knobs with Gaz. Typically, I like 2 Mega Knobs with Gaz. The reason why we have 3 here is simply because I had like 35 points left over or something like that, and there's just nothing else I could do with it. So it's like, all right, well, I'll take a 3rd Mega Knob. It doesn't hurt my feelings to have that 3rd Mega Knob. There are just a lot of times where my opponent kills both Mega Knobs to the wound, and then Gaz doesn't get his bonus of being +1 to hit, +1 to wound. So it doesn't bother me to have the 3rd Mega Knob. It's just I would like to be able to spend those points elsewhere. And maybe with some fine-tuning, you guys could find a way to actually just cut it down to 2 and get an extra unit or something. Then we've got the 2x5 units of knobs, both led by a war boss, because in Warhorde, you freaking love these units. They hit so darn hard, especially in the WAAAGH turn, where Gazcool is going to be critting on 5s, and you're going to spend Unbridled Carnage on another unit to also have them critting on 5s with both lethal and sustained. It just gets bonkers. 2x5 Storm Boys, 1 starts on the board, 1 starts in Deep Strike. The Battle Wagon, there seems to be a conversation about people, do they like battle wagons or do they not like battle wagons? I am in the camp that I like battle wagons. I don't think that battle wagons are required, but I like them. It's more or less a 160 point land raider, and that's no freaking joke. Like, it is not easy to pop. That doesn't mean it doesn't get popped. It totally does, but it is not easy to get popped, and it does actually still slap in melee quite a bit. So I like a good battle wagon. It also gives you tons of freaking transport capacity. So what I would run inside this battle wagon here, I'd start it on the board. I would have my Beast Snagga Boys and Gretchen inside that battle wagon. Well, let me repeat that. I'm going to have the Beast Snagga Boys and a unit of Gretchen inside that battle wagon. What this allows me to do is turn 1, it allows me to disembark my Gretchen and advance them up to wherever they need to go. I start my boys on my home field objective. That will sticky the home field objective, turn 1. And then in the movement phase, I'll have them jump in the battle wagon. So then the battle wagon can go wherever it is. The battle wagon is very flexible. It allows in following turns for the Beast Snaggas or the boys to just jump and charge wherever they need to go in whatever direction they need to go. If they do pop the battle wagon, you can careen it into a good position, or the boys can get out on an objective, meaning that in your next turn, if they control that objective, it's now sticky, right? So it gives you lots and lots and lots and lots of choices. So I love the battle wagon, followed up by 3 trucks, because you just need transports. Typically, you're going to, inside the transports, like I said, you're going to have probably 2 trucks. Each truck is going to have 1 unit of Breaker Boys and a unit of knobs led by Warboss, because that would be 12 models to control the truck. And then the 3rd truck is going to belong to another unit of Beast Snaggas. That's how you're going to run this list. It has overwhelming pressure. It causes tons of damage outside of the wall, which is very, very key. And I'm having absolute blast with it. So these are the 3 lists. Give them a whirl. Let me know what you think. They're all very different, and they operate really differently. I am very interested to see how Mozrog starts performing when I bring him into the Tactical Brigade. It could end up being a whiff. It could just be something that doesn't work. I hope I'm wrong. I have strong thoughts on the Mozrog combination, where the reason why I think people hate Mozrog is because they expect the wrong things from Mozrog. I think they expect Mozrog to go in and cause damage 3 and damage 5 on devastating wounds from Big Champa, but I don't think that's the case at all. Instead, what I'm going to do with Mozrog is I'm going to run him up a flank. I'm going to have him hidden, but I'm going to allow my opponent to draw a line of sight to him if they want to expose themselves in a precarious position. So I'm going to allow them to draw a line of sight, but in order to draw a line of sight, they're going to have to put themselves in a place where they don't really want to be. And then they're going to hope that Mozrog dies. So a lot of times, just because of the nature of Mozrog's 4 invulnerable save, and now he's -1 to be hit, your opponent's going to have to dedicate a lot more to killing Mozrog than they really want to, which will a lot of times relieve the pressure on the rest of your trucks and the rest of your army as they advance. So I don't really have mods in here to kill things. I have mods in here to either force a response from my opponent, or just to go annoy the piss out of my opponent if they choose to ignore him. Because once again, like, you can ignore him, but then you risk him just popping off, and that's a big problem for your opponent as well. So these are 3 lists. Let me hear your thoughts down below. If you've got really interesting lists, I'd like to hear about them. And until next time, this has been Happy Crumpin'. So crump on. Bye-bye.